All right, welcome everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you to my 8th and final State of Superior event. It's great to be back in person at our wonderful new community center. And I want to thank Mayor Pro-tem Mark Lacis for joining here today. I don't see any other members of the board, and wanted to special welcome to Tatiana Hernandez of Boulder County, Boulder Community Foundation, or Community Foundation of Boulder County. Got it. Thank you for joining us today. As we begin today, I want to start by making several acknowledgments regarding the Marshall Fire, December 2021. I want to start by thanking our town staff, led by Town Manager Matt Magley, who's here. If there was ever a test for someone's ability to lead during a crisis, this was it. And Matt really deserves special recognition for his leadership of the entire town during this time. For the past 6 months, the staff has worked tirelessly on the response, the recovery, and the rebuilding efforts, including one staff member who lost their home. Likewise, my fellow board members on the Board of Trustees have also worked extremely hard tackling every aspect in helping fellow residents recover. Our volunteer advisory committees and commissions have several members who have lost their homes during this event, and yet they still showed up to perform the important work of our town. Our historical commission especially suffered with the loss of our beloved historical museum in Asti Park. But as we've seen time and time again, the community rallies and steps up to help. I want to recognize also a special group of volunteers called Superior Rising that have come together, as many of them were dealing with their own losses, to help with others navigating the recovery and rebuilding efforts. Thanks to our Chamber of Commerce, who always steps forward with support for businesses and residents, and to the Community Foundation of Boulder County for their ongoing support for our residents in the immediate aftermath and with ongoing rebuilding efforts. During our presentation today, we're going to share some details on the impacts of the Marshall Fire in our town. However, the true impacts of the Marshall Fire is impossible to quantify with any number. It was not just structures that we lost, but also memories, important parts of our community, and for many of us, the way of life has changed forever. Even after the fire stopped burning, our town dealt with power and gas outages, water supply challenges, and lots of cleanup. While our town hall was closed, this community center was transformed into a supply distribution point, distributing water, meals, and heaters during the aftermath of the fire. Our community showed its true resilience and strength following such a horrible event. Please know that the Board of Trustees and the town staff all remain committed to helping everyone in our community recover and rebuild in the months and years ahead. Now we're going to transition into our presentation materials. Please note that all the materials that you're going to see here on the slides will be available separately on the town website. Some of it there's a lot of detail on some of the slides. You'll probably think, I can't possibly read that. I won't be able to read it, but it'll be available for later viewing. And we also welcome your follow-up questions both after the event and immediately following. So if you do have questions, just please hold them to the end, and then we will certainly circle back with a time for question and answer. Now I'd like to introduce Mayor Pro-tem Mark Lacis. He's going to cover our first section on the Marshall Fire.
Thank you, Mayor Folsom, and thank you all for being here today. Can everybody see the presentation? Might be a little hard on this side of the room. So it goes without saying that we've been through a lot here in Superior over the past few years. The pandemic should have been enough for anyone, but with the Marshall Fire that absolutely devastated our town and the greater surrounding area, we've been challenged in a very unique way. Across the region, we lost close to 1,100 homes and 7 commercial buildings, and that's in Louisville, Superior, and the greater unincorporated Boulder County area. An additional 150 homes and 30 businesses were severely damaged, and total losses are estimated at close to $1 billion. Tragically, 2 people lost their lives, but thanks to the heroic efforts of our first responders who went door to door while the fire was raging, it could have been so much worse. Next slide. Here in Superior, we lost 1 out of every 7 homes. 437 homes were either damaged or destroyed, and 378 homes were totally destroyed. We also suffered impacts to our businesses. We lost the Element Hotel, which was a total loss, and many other businesses were severely damaged, especially those in and around the Superior Marketplace. And while many of them have been able to reopen, Target, Tesla, Wayne's, Smoke Shack, they were all severely damaged. They're still working on reconstruction, and we are all eagerly awaiting their reopening. Town suffered losses as well. As Mayor Folsom indicated, we lost the Historical Museum in Asty Park. We suffered damage to Town Hall. The roof partially blew off because of the severe winds. And we suffered substantial impacts to our infrastructure. We suffered damage to the water treatment plant and at our terminal reservoir, which houses our town's drinking water. Now, it's been 169 days since the disaster, and we have come a long way, and we're making really good progress. Right out of the gates, Mayor Folsom and Governor Polis declared states of emergency. Then President Biden issued a major disaster declaration. Those acts unlocked state and federal resources to aid local governments in the recovery process. President Biden, Governor Polis, Senators Bennett and Hickenlooper, and Congressman Neguse, and Congressman Neguse's office is represented here today, so we're appreciative of that. They all came and toured the area, some of them multiple times. And we're really thankful for the support that we're getting on a state and federal level. In the immediate aftermath after the fire, here at the community center, we were distributing bottled water, hot meals, space heaters, as everybody can recall, to prevent from the freeze that we were all suffering from while the gas was still turned off. And you know, even in the immediate aftermath of the tragedy, it was really encouraging to see the community come together, you know, volunteer to help each other out in a time of need. So currently, we are in the midst of the PPDR, which is the Private Property Debris Removal Program. That's commonly referred to as the Coordinated Cleanup. It's being led by Boulder County in conjunction with the state and FEMA and the county selected contractor DRC. Now, one of the things that is important to note that when FEMA, and this is something that I didn't know before this disaster, and never went through a FEMA emergency before, but you know, typically when FEMA gets called in to assist a local jurisdiction with a cleanup from a hurricane, from a tornado, they'll cover 75% of the costs associated with the cleanup. Here, thanks to the efforts of our state and federal officials, FEMA and the local officials who have lobbied for this increase, FEMA has agreed to cover 90% of the cleanup. The state is chipping in an additional 5%, so Superior's local share of the coordinated cleanup is 5%. And that's really significant because the coordinated cleanup is estimated to cost in excess of the town's annual budget. So, you know, we needed all the help that we can get, and we're really appreciative to our state and federal partners to help us with this cleanup. Now, so far in the PPDR, we've got 315 demolition permits have been issued, and 108 lots have been cleared. For those of you who haven't been behind, you know, Costco to see Sagamore, Sagamore's almost entirely scraped, as is a good chunk of original town. And we've issued 2 building permits so far, and we've got a lot of them in the pipeline. So that's really encouraging. We're slightly ahead of schedule in terms of the cleanup, and I think that's just a really great thing to see to help our town heal. If you can go to the next slide, please. Sorry about that. All right. On the water side of things, so separate from the private property debris removal program, as we indicated previously, the town's infrastructure suffered damage to the water treatment plant and the reservoirs as a whole. We've removed over 100 cubic yards of ash from our terminal reservoir, and that was in an effort to reduce and deal with the smoky water taste that everybody was suffering in the aftermath of the fire. We're also in the process of installing a granular activated carbon filtration system, which is a $1 million filtration system. You can see the tanks there in the picture, and you can see it from McCaslin. They delivered last week. Once those are operational in July, that should really take care of all of the remaining taste issues that people are having with the water. We've fixed other damaged property in town. The roof on Town Hall got fixed. We've also increased our staffing, and our leasing of space. So we've got additional planners and building department officials that have been brought on board to help the town process the real flood of building permit applications that we're anticipating seeing over the next coming months. But make no mistake about it, next slide please, the Marshall Fire has had and will continue to have a significant financial impact on our town. Revenues to the town just in 2022 alone are going to be down $3 million. That's largely due to sales tax shortfalls because of Target, Tesla, Element being closed. Property tax collections will also be down. And while we're expecting to receive about $20 million in reimbursement from FEMA, from the state, and from insurance carriers, we're still expecting to have an unbudgeted for, unreimbursed cost of about $4 million to the town to help deal with the cleanup. So, these are challenges that the town is dealing with right now. To address some of those challenges, we've already identified about $2.5 million in budget cuts, and more are being considered for the future. Fortunately, we as a town have the means to meet the challenge based on how the town board and town manager and finance department have managed our town's finances over the decades. We have really substantial reserves created specifically for these types of emergencies. When I first got on the board, I remember our town finance director, Paul Nils, talked about the mall down in Golden and the hailstorm that basically took out the mall, and the city of Lakewood and Golden were dealing with just an unanticipated shortfall of revenues. And he was kind of preparing us for that kind of rainy day event, that event where we would have a significant drop off in revenues. So we've got about $10.9 million, almost $11 million in our general fund, $17.5 million in our water fund. So as a town, we're going to be okay. But our residents are not necessarily as fortunate. With the challenges posed by inflation and supply chain limitations, an absolutely insane real estate market, and the fact that many of our residents are drastically underinsured, many of our residents are still struggling. And they're struggling over and above what we would expect them to be struggling with in the aftermath of the fire. So the town board has taken numerous actions to try to assist our residents in the rebuilding process, and we've passed a number of ordinances to help facilitate that. So one of the ordinances that we passed is rebating building permit fees and sales and use taxes for fire rebuilds. We also passed opt-outs for rebuilds so they don't have to comply with the 2021 energy efficiency codes, and there's an opt-out for interior residential sprinkler requirements for single-family homes. All of those were designed to help reduce the costs of reconstruction for people who lost their homes. In Original Town, we amended the setbacks and standards for accessory dwelling units to give people more flexibility in how they were going to rebuild. And in Sagamore, we amended the PUD there to give more flexibility in the design that people were looking to rebuild their homes. Sagamore was a planned community built by a single developer in the 90s, and the PD had certain limitations that weren't really practical in this day and age. So we've changed those as well. Town board also worked with the state legislature. Many of us testified down in Denver in support of Senate Bill 206, which provides funding for those who are underinsured and funding for energy efficient and more sustainable rebuilds. Governor Polis then signed Senate Bill 206 into law before the legislative session concluded in May. So wrapping up on the Marshall Fire, undoubtedly the Marshall Fire was devastating and it truly tested our community, but I'm proud of the town's response. I'm proud of the actions of the town board, town manager Magley, and the rest of town staff who have really went over and above the call of duty here to respond to this crisis. And I'm really proud of our residents who have been donating their time, their money, their assistance, the Superior Rising Community Group who have come together to assist our residents in this time of need. I know it's been incredibly challenging for all of us, but in this response, we've truly seen the best of us as well. And that's really encouraging. And I'm confident that we'll get through this and emerge stronger and more resilient in the future. And with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor for talk about economic development.
Okay, thank you. All right, next slide. This is a map, one of those hard to read maps, that shows several sites highlighted around our town that are called development opportunities. Most of these have projects that are approved and underway, and others do not. I'll be mentioning many of these throughout the presentation. Next slide. Rock Creek Village and Colton Crossing, right across the street here. A couple of new businesses in Rock Creek Village, and also known as the Safeway Center, had Boss Lady Pizza, Vetka Flowers, Superior or Souptown CrossFit, Corrective Spinal Care of Colorado, Tequila y Mezcal, and there's a tap house coming. Pat, who's the son of Pam of PJ's Diner, is doing a tap house across the street, so that's exciting too. Next slide. Superior Marketplace and Superior Plaza, Crumble Cookie opened in 2021, and a couple of new businesses are planned. Santiago's next to Wayne Smoke Shack, Blue Federal Credit Union, and Bambi Brewing, and is going to be in the former Old Chicago space. That is in the Superior Plaza building where Superior Liquor is. And next slide. Downtown Superior. So there was, before the Marshall Fire, there was already a lot of development activity going on in Superior, most of it in the downtown Superior area. And this is a kind of a high-level slide that most of the slide has remained unchanged for a couple of years. We've updated the investment to date, about $300 million invested to date, and the residences number at the next to the last on the bottom, 1,055 of the up to 1,400 approved. We may not get to 1,400, just don't know yet as the whole project gets built out. Now I've got several more slides here to show detail on approved projects that are in progress. The only significant sections of downtown Superior that go back one, sorry. So on the very left there, you'll see 2, 5, and 8. Blocks 2, 5, and 8. That's adjacent to McCaslin and Main Street roundabout there. That is, I don't have any slides on that section because it has not been formally approved yet, but you may have heard about the life sciences building proposal for that area. That project will be presented to the Board of Trustees for consideration at our next meeting on June 27th. And because it's an active application, we really can't go into details or making opinions and so on that presentation. But please do check out the materials that will be on the town board's packet, which will be available next week. All right, now next slide. So Remington Homes is developing a portion of Block 25, made significant progress on their single-family homes and townhomes in that block. Next slide. Thrive Home Builders is doing blocks 14 and the other portion of block 15. All of their townhomes are now completed and 28 permits issued on their townhomes. Next slide. Toll Brothers is doing probably the largest section of downtown Superior. 300 residential units were approved late 2019, and townhome and single-family homes are in progress there. They've mostly been doing site work. They do have one model home that's been completed and a certificate of occupancy issued. And that model home is in that top right. I took that photo a few weeks ago. And then there's some other renderings of kind of what the development will look like. Okay, next slide. So Carmel Partners is developing kind of what we refer to as the downtown core. This is really I think the part of downtown that everybody's been looking forward to. It was approved in December of 2019, but didn't get going until 2021 due primarily to COVID. And because right after the approval, they were kind of getting ready to get going, and then COVID happened, and there was kind of the COVID delay. So it was about a year of time lost there. So what this is going to encompass is a large plaza area kind of in front of the sports stable. There's going to be shops and restaurants around that. There's going to be another community center, another town community center, similar amount of space as this one, and that's going to be on that plaza area. The large structure that's under construction right now is a parking garage for, there's apartments and there's going to be retail, and the community center is all going to be on the outer portion of that structure. So it's going to be one of those parking garages where they wrap the parking garage with other building so that you don't see just a giant, massive parking structure. Okay, and so that's in the top right. That's under construction right now. And then there in the bottom left is a rendering of what that the plaza and promenade. And that area is also going to connect to Parks 1 and 2, which are the creek improvements have been done. They're working on the park right now. The bridge over Coal Creek is done. And so that area is really starting to take shape. And that is really going to be kind of that community space that I think a lot of people have really been looking forward to. Okay, go to next slide, and that's the bridge I was just mentioning. So the bridge is opened in January of this year. Okay, next slide. Across from downtown Superior, we've got Rogers Farm. The WE cottages are being built. There's 51 single-family WE cottages. WE meaning smaller format homes are being built there, and sales on those just started. Okay, next. Discovery Ridge. This is kind of uphill from downtown Superior. 20 duplex units, and remaining 10 are under construction right now. Next slide. Lanterns at Boulder Creek neighborhood, building built by Boulder Creek neighborhood, 62 units total. And they've got 27 remaining to finish there. Montmere is probably best located across, or the best landmark, Chick-fil-A. We all know where that is. And that's so across from Chick-fil-A, and next to Bell Flatiron is Montmere at Autry Shores. They have 94 townhomes being built there. Several of them overlooking the little reservoir there, so really nice views out to the west from those. All right, and now we'll transition to town manager for the town budget segment.
Thanks, Mayor. So the town adopts a annual budget every year, and typically the time frame is October, November, depending on when the board election is. If it's like this year, we'll adopt the budget in October, but sometimes on non-election years, it's a little bit later. Next slide, please. So this is a slide of our annual revenues, and typically you see 43 million, but it varies from year to year depending on our capital improvement program and what type of programs are scheduled for that year. So it ranges anywhere from 40 to 50 million dollars every year. The largest portion of our budget comes from sales and use tax. Most of the cities in Colorado, that's the way it is. We live on sales and use tax mainly, so when we have stores like Target close or Element, it's a big impact to us. So that's why we have the reduction in budget this year, because of those closures. The next biggest portion is our property tax. But something I'll point out here is the town's portion of your property tax mill levy is less than 8 mills. So your total millage is over 100 mills for most people, and our portion of that is only less than 8 mills. Your largest property tax goes to either the school district or Boulder County or the fire district. So it's just something that I like to point out. We try to keep our property taxes low because we know the impacts that you have in other areas. And then we have other interest income and transfers of service and charges for service, which is like your water bill and those things. Next slide. So this is a slide showing where expenses go. The large portion of our expenses are going to the general fund, which pays for the operations of the government, the annual operations. And then capital, excuse me, capital is our next biggest portion. And that's where we use to rebuild our roads, do improvements to parks, the community center improvements, or any other type of capital type improvements that you'll see. And then we have Our enterprise funds, which is Superior Metropolitan District number 1, that's your water, sewer, and storm district. So we have expenses for that. And then we have some special districts like the McCaslin Interchange District and the Superior Urban Renewal Authority also. So those expenses are a little bit less for it, but it gives you an idea of where our annual expenses go to. Next slide. This just shows a trend of our revenues over the years. It's pretty stable. You can see from 2017 to 2026 that the sales and use tax is pretty stable. And typically up until 2020, which is when COVID hit, we were seeing increases, and then because of COVID and now Marshall Fire, we're starting to see a reduction in our revenue, so we've budgeted for that for the out years. And you'll see in 26, it's starting to inch back up. Next slide. This is our property tax revenue. You'll see in this one that in 2022 and 23, there's not as big of an increase from those 2 years because of the Marshall Fire, the county's reassessing properties that were damaged by the fire, so we've accounted for that, and some properties are going to see a decrease in their assessment because of that. And so we've accounted for that in here. Next slide. This is a good slide showing our debt that we've had over the years. And you'll see back in 2007, we had our highest amount of debt, which is over $70 million. That was largely due to purchasing water rights that we did in the early 2000s to provide water to all the residents and new development. So we secured that by buying a bunch of water rights, and it caused us to get over $70 million in debt, which is a huge number. But over the years, we've been able to work that down, and we had a little bit of debt we took on in 2020, but by 2026, you'll see that we're going to be back under $20 million in debt, which I think is a good position for the town to be in. Next slide. So our biggest increase for sales tax has been internet sales. So when COVID hit, we saw a big jump of internet sales tax that we were receiving from like Amazon and other retailers. So that's helped us kind of see a steady increase, but and total receipts are 14 million. And then we also have building, one-time building fees that we collect when a new house is built or a new commercial building goes in. We collect school impact fee or park impact fee and things like that. And also utility fees that help to go support our water treatment plant, sewer treatment plant, and help to make improvements to those plants in the future years. Next slide. So our Superior Metropolitan District number 1, which is the water, sewer, and storm, for a long time it was dependent on general fund sales tax going to it to help support it, which is not what you want with an enterprise fund. You want it to be self-sufficient. Well, a few years ago, thanks to good planning by the board and previous boards and town staff, we were able to get that SMD1 enterprise fund to be self-sufficient. And we were, in previous years, having $1.5 million flow from the general fund to SMD1, which is not what you want because it takes away from capital projects that we could be doing or other services that we could be doing. So that was a big thing for us to be able to get that SMD1 to be self-sufficient. And then we have no rate increases that are planned for water and storm in future years because of that operation being self-sufficient. And yeah, so it was a good outcome for us. Next slide. Public Works and Utilities.
All right. So we have a lot of important public works projects that are currently underway. I'll just give a brief update on a few of them that you're probably seeing happening right now. So the first one is the US 36 bikeway extension. So in connection with the whole rebuild of US 36 several years ago, there were bikeways that were run along 36. One of the areas that was absent of a bikeway connection was on the western side of US 36 along Superior. That has been extended over the years, and this year what we're doing is we're connecting the overpass bridge from Avista Hospital down to Flatirons Crossing Mall. So the bikeway extension is a 10-foot wide concrete multi-use trail. It's going to run along US 36, but then it's going to take a detour and go down 88th Street and then through Autry Park, and that'll be the connection to Flatirons Crossing Mall. So it won't run absolutely parallel to the 36. But the nice part is that this is funded in large part with a grant from DRCOG, which is the Denver Regional Council of Governments. So we're getting $1.5 million, I believe, from DRCOG to help us fund this bikeway extension. So, we're always looking for ways to get people out of their cars and commuting on their bikes, and this is just another way for people to do that in Superior. So that's a great improvement. Next slide, please. We have Promenade Drive, which is going to be the southern connection to downtown Superior. So this will be the access point for downtown Superior to connect through to 88th Street. So for those who don't want to get to downtown Superior through McCaslin, you can connect via Promenade Drive, which will run parallel to US 36 behind the Lanterns Lane development. This will be the access point for Louisville residents to access downtown Superior as well. The town's portion of the road is complete, and now we're waiting for Toll Brothers to finish their section of the road, and we're expecting it to be open to the public by the fall of 2022. So that will also be great. Another thing that we're looking forward to about that is it's always good to have additional access points for safety purposes. Marshall Fire, we had a lot of people that were concerned about evacuation, and providing additional access points to downtown Superior will be helpful for the health and safety of our residents. Our new headworks at the wastewater treatment plant was completed at the end of 2021. We've been doing a lot of work at the wastewater treatment plant over the past several years, and this was a substantial upgrade to an aging plant that was built in the 1990s. It was well past its prime, and this will significantly help with odor control for the people who live in and around the wastewater treatment plant. So that's good news for all of them. And then lastly, we've got the Chimney Hollow Reservoir construction. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Chimney Hollow Reservoir project, this is the largest new reservoir that's being built in northern Colorado in the past 70 years. It's going to be located west of Loveland, west of Carter Lake. And it's going to be a 4-year-long project to actually construct the reservoir. There are numbers of towns that are participating in this project. It's a $500 million project, and I believe Superior's share of it is something like $30 million. And what this will do is this is going to secure our water supply for the future. So, water is precious along the Front Range. We live in an arid climate, so making sure that we have the rights and the water supply to deal with climate change and just the needs of our community, this project will handle that for the future. So that'll be really exciting to see that come online. And now I'll turn it over to Mayor Folsom to talk about Parks and Rec.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks to Parks Director Leslie Clark and her staff for putting these slides together. Parks and Recreation has been very busy in the last couple of years. Here's an overall summary of our Parks and Recreation system: 812 acres of parks and open space, 40 miles of trails. Not bad for a 4 square mile town. So lots to maintain. All right, and look at the number of sprinkler heads. I mean, think about the number of sprinkler heads in your yard that you're always fighting with, and they have to fight with 60,000 of them in 3,000 zones. You can't imagine. All right, next slide. Here's some highlights from 2021. 21 was an important year, kind of getting back into the swing of things with activities. We got back to our in-person events. We opened the community center, opened the pickleball courts, and did a lot of outdoor tennis and outdoor lessons, pools back in operation, and a lot of outdoor reservations and arts and events projects. Next slide. Some recreation highlights. These were some summaries of our 2021 recreation programs and some statistics from our facilities. Parks and Pavilions Community Center got off to a very strong start. Launched a new recreation software in early this year that will help with making reservations and so on for all the different programs. Next slide. Some cultural arts highlights from both last year and this year. There's so many here. I'll let you refer back to our slides and read through these, but appreciate Parks putting all of this great summary together. They've been very busy on the cultural arts on the side of things. All right, next. And a lot of good community events came back in 2021, Arbor Day, Chili and Beer Fest, and 4th of July, and we're going to be doing those again this year as well, in addition to more. Lots and lots of volunteer projects. We're so proud of all the different committees, the commissions that volunteer, but just everyday citizens always volunteer for so many different events. This is a comprehensive list of all of the different events throughout the year of 21. 427 volunteers and 4,300 hours of service, and a great savings that offers to the community for all of that work. Next slide. Here's some project updates. There's, with that many acres of open space and parks, there's lots of projects always being planned. Pickleball court was completed, and some art installations, dog park improvements will be done this year. Purple Park Playground was completely rebuilt earlier this year and finished, and had a ribbon cutting for that. The Autry Disc Golf course is being redesigned in conjunction with that bikeway trail, and Tract H, which is between downtown Superior and Rock Creek. There's a brand new park there. There'll be parks 1 and 2, and those are adjacent to Coal Creek in downtown Superior. Central Park, a downtown Superior project that was just approved at our last board meeting, and some more playground shade structures, which is always welcome. And some sustainability projects in conjunction with the town board's sustainability goals. We're going to be looking at more xeriscaping along Rock Creek Parkway in the coming year, continuous improvements on the irrigation of our town, use of electric mowers, blowers, weed eaters, and a pollinator project, compost program, tree recycle into mulch, and supporting the Scouts tree recycling program, continued transition of LED lighting and EV charging stations coming here to the community center. Parks and Recreation Department here at the community center heavily involved in Marshall Fire recovery efforts. This was kind of the immediate staffing location. Our town hall was badly damaged during the fires and took several weeks to get repaired. And so this center, unfortunately, was not severely impacted. So we were able to operate out of here for staffing, for distribution of water and supplies and heaters and so on. And there's many other efforts that Parks has been involved in and will continue to be involved in through 2022. This is a slide on Parks 1 and 2. In the middle of that picture is the Marshall Bridge, and at the top of the drawing is US 36, just to kind of get you oriented. The Tesla building up at the top left. So that entire space there is going to be really nice park spaces, an amphitheater for performances, a lighted field for field activities, so an increased field space, and a lot of good trail connectivity through there. And that's opening this fall. Tract H, also adjacent to the Toll Brothers property, is a brand new park that's been designed, approved, and it's under construction. It'll be open later this year. Central Park, that was just approved by the town board at our past meeting has got a much needed dog park for downtown Superior and some additional amenities there. And access to our cemetery. We've got a cemetery that is, it's been there over 100 years. I mean, that was kind of the original founding of the town. Some of the, a lot of history there at the cemetery, and there's really not been a way to access it until now. So this will be built, and this will provide families and just visitors of all types opportunity to go and learn about the incredible history that existed in, from the coal mining era. So thanks for our historical commission for getting being a lead on that. Coyote Ridge open space. This was the largest purchase of open space that the town ever completed, and that was done in 2020. 182 acres, and the Parks Department will be continuing to work on a master plan for that space, and 6 miles of surface trails throughout that space. So really nice amenity for the town. Next slide. Okay, this is our final slide. And this is some ways to stay in touch. If you're not hearing from us, make sure that you take some notes and get connected with us. I want to close by several thank yous. I want to thank Serendipity Catering, Gwen and team, for helping out with providing the nice snacks over here. If you haven't gotten some, please get some before you leave. And thank all of town staff, Martin, who always helps with getting the slides together, and Kevin for getting the room set up here, and our AV folks for getting everything set up. Appreciate that. Nathan Fair, who reached out to me and offered to help with some remarks and helping to get the slides fine-tuned. A gentleman named Nick Noble, who helped me as an intern doing some slides. And I want to thank all of staff for just helping keep things run smoothly for the last several months and their ongoing work. Thank my wife Leslie and our 2 sons and my parents and extended family, all of whom support me and the time that I spend serving as mayor. And want to thank, of course, the Board of Trustees for all of their hard work. And finally, thank you, the residents of Superior, for giving me the opportunity to serve as your mayor for the last 8 years. It's been the greatest honor and privilege for me to represent you and serve you as mayor. So thank you very much. And now I'd like to give the floor to Mayor Pro-tem Mark Lacis for some closing remarks, and then we'll be happy to take your questions.
Thanks, Mayor Folsom. I wanted to thank Mayor Folsom for starting this State of Superior. We didn't always do this, and this was his idea. And I think it's just been a great event to just kind of give an update on everything that's going on in town and all that we've accomplished over the past year. So it was a great improvement, and I'm glad you started it. I want to thank our incredible town staff, led by Town Manager Magley, for everything that you guys have done, especially in response to the fire. You've really gone above and beyond the call of duty, and late nights and not many weekends, and it's incredible the response that we have from our town staff. And then I just want to thank all the residents for being here today, for helping out, chipping in to help the community recover from the fire. We've got a really great group of engaged and informed citizens, and it's really you who make this town so special. So we've got a lot of work to do as a community to continue to rebuild and recover from the fire, but I'm really optimistic about what the future holds. I know that we're going to emerge from this, stronger and better than we were before. And thank you for the opportunity to serve. So, look forward to your questions.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I just had 2 quick ones. Is the Element Hotel going to be rebuilt? And when is the area around the parking garage going to be finished and available for use?
Sure.
The question is on the Element Hotel. So the debris cleanup's almost done. They're getting close. They're working through with their insurance company. They would like to rebuild. They've asked for some building-related information, and we've given that to them. So all indications are that they're going to rebuild, but it depends on their insurance and how that settles out. So We can't say for sure, but it sounds like they're going to. And then the Carmel project in downtown Superior, I think that's what you were referring to around the parking garage, is we had an update from them at the last board meeting, which was on Monday. And they indicated that they would have those buildings done next year, sometime next year, probably summer of next year, along Main Street and around the parking garage as well.
Thank you.
Hi. In the first slide, or when we were talking about the budget, you had mentioned there was going to be a little over $2 million in budget cuts. I wonder if you can talk a little bit more details about what is going to be cut. And my second question is, you mentioned that some of the medians are going to be zero-scaped. I wonder if that's going to be a trend to kind of looking at ways that we can reduce water usage.
Yeah, I'll take the xeriscape one, then I'll give the tough question to town manager. Yeah, the xeriscaping is definitely something we're wanting to look forward to doing more extensively townwide. I mean, having the grass in the medians just makes sense in this dry climate to save some water, and also safer for the lawnmowers not having to scurry across lanes of traffic to mow the grass. Well, I'll touch on what I know about the budget cuts. I think it's primarily capital improvement projects that we're pushing out. So it's not that services are being turned off. It's more of capital projects, paving, things like paving roads or rebuilding structures, or big money items that we're just kind of pushing out into the future. And that's not too unusual, because different boards have got different priorities. I mean, when this community center opportunity came along, this required some moving around of things to make this happen. This was not a budgeted expense, but we made it happen through a series of adjustments and kind of moving things around. So although it sounds like it is a very big number, we feel confident that over time we'll recover and be able to get those things done in the years to come.
And I'll just add, I've got a detailed list that I can get to you if you want, I can get to you. But one of the projects, we've talked about doing improvements to North Pool, and we're going to have some design work done for that this year, and we pushed that off. So projects like that, but I think the board still plans to do most of those projects that were delayed. They're just being delayed until we're in a better position.
Many of us who are underinsured appreciate all of the incentives to help us rebuild. And the ordinance number 2 that the town of Superior passed, 206, helping with disaster preparedness and recovery. And then most recently, I got an email today saying that there's an additional $10,000 for energy incentives. But however, all of these incentives are centered around energy and not around preparing for future fires and fire mitigation. And I was I was hoping that there would be more incentives around fire mitigation. As you know, right now we're under a stage 1 fire restriction. And I was also disappointed to find out that the board dismissed fire regulations for fire safety measures for new rebuilds and new buildings, especially when you are building new a lot of more housing development around the same place where over half of the homes were destroyed. I was just hoping that you might be able to address what the town of Superior is planning on doing with this, and what and what the town of Superior plans on doing to help regulate the open spaces.
Thank you for the question. And regarding the fire-resistant construction regulations, which was voted down by the board, that was a split decision. It was a tough decision, and I think at that particular meeting, the real decision rested on the cost impacts for people rebuilding, and the thought that if you price people out of being able to rebuild, they won't be able to stay in the community. Now, whether that's the right decision and how much does that cost, that's the real tough part of that. And there has been some discussion amongst the board about having further discussion on this at an upcoming work session, which could then lead to some other direction on that. And so I would say that the story's not completely over on that, but I don't have, since we haven't discussed it as a board, I can't really speak for where the board's gonna go on that. Do you want to add?
Yeah, so the board is, so we've got a town board meeting coming up on, not this coming Monday, but then the following Monday. And then the Thursday after that, the 30th, we have a work session scheduled. So at the work session, we're going to be talking about, specifically like the WUI discussion, the Wildland Urban Interface codes specific to Sagamore. We're going to be talking about it there, and if there's going to be further direction to town staff to do something specific for Sagamore. One of the things that we were, I think struggling with at that meeting where we didn't adopt the WUI standard was, is this going to be applicable to rebuilds? Is this applicable to town-wide? Are all areas of the town kind of equally situated and equally threatened by fire? And was this the right ordinance at the right time for this particular problem right now? So I think there's more discussion that's coming. I think there's going to be action taken by the board, frankly, specific to Sagamore. I can't guarantee anything, but I think that's kind of reading the tea leaves in terms of where the board is headed. Specific to your question, Joy, about wildfire mitigation. So, one of the challenges that we have is we benefit from all the wonderful open space that we have to our west, but we don't own it. That open space is largely owned by Boulder County. So we need to work with Boulder County. So we're going to be scheduling a meeting with Boulder County soon. We've been asking for it. It hasn't been scheduled yet. One of the topics that we want to discuss with Boulder County is, creating fire breaks and, mowing the 4-foot, 5-foot tall grasses so we don't have another Marshall fire. And that's, again, us asking them to do something with their land, but I think it's a reasonable ask, and we're going to continue to push them on that. Is there anything else that we didn't cover? Is that it? Okay. All right. Thanks for the question.
Hi. Most of Original Town has been cleared, and it's quite wonderful. I love seeing the weeds growing up. But there's the junkyards, and the junkyard on 4th and Coal Creek Drive. What's the story? When will it be cleared? How, let alone the junkyard at the other side on Coal Creek beyond CCC. Any information you can give us? There's a lot of concern in our community about the toxicity, the rats, and so on in those junkyards.
I'll answer briefly, and then I'll let Matt fill in. So one of the things that we're going to be discussing on the 30th is a deadline for people to clean up the lots that haven't been cleaned up yet. So, most of the parcels that were burned are participating in the coordinated cleanup, and cleanup is underway or is scheduled to be underway soon. And then there's a handful of lots in town that are not participating in the coordinated cleanup, but they've got a private contractor lined up. And then there's an even smaller handful of lots that we haven't yet received a application, a demolition permit or anything like that. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about on the 30th is setting a deadline for people to clean up their lots. So that'll be, hopefully there'll be some guidance on that at the end of the month. And then Matt, do you want to fill in about kind of specific plans for those lots?
So town staff has been it's one family kind of owns all that land over there that you're talking about, and on the other side as well. It's the same family with different members involved, but we've talked to them, and they do plan on cleaning those areas up, getting the debris removed. They're working on some other lots first, and then they're going to move over, is what they've told us, to the lots that you've indicated concern about. So we do plan on them removing the debris and getting that clean to a point where because they want to rebuild and they want to sell some of it. So they have motivation to get that work done. Yeah. Yep. Thanks.
Thanks again for having this. I really haven't heard too much about if there's any resolution about how the fire started or who's responsible for that. It seems like that's kind of gotten lost. So I just wondered if you could comment on that.
Sure. I think the primary agency that will be making that announcement is the Boulder County Sheriff's Office. It's kind of their jurisdiction for the whole scene. And the latest that I heard from County Sheriff, and this was a couple of weeks ago, was we're getting close, but we want to get it right. When you've got $1 billion of damage, you want to get it right. And we've all kind of heard the different theories, and there's could be more than one cause. But each of those, kind of leads back to different entities, and so they just want to get it right. It's definitely not gotten lost. They've not forgotten about it. There's going to be a lot of certainly, that will be a big news thing when that comes out, and then there's also going to be additional follow-up on the response and what went right, what went wrong. I attended a meeting on that with some first responders and law enforcement last week in Louisville, and those discussions are ongoing as well. So the public will definitely get more information on both the cause and then also the response, and how do we do things better in the future? How do we get notifications better? My phone didn't go off. Our family's phone didn't go off. I heard many stories. While it's tragic that we lost 2 lives in this fire, if this had happened at night or some other time when people were not, or during the school day or something. There's just so many scenarios where it could have happened and it could have been a whole lot worse. So anyway, lots of more debriefing to come on that, but thank you for the question. Additional questions?
I don't, excuse me, I don't have a question, but I wanted to make a remark, and I just want to say thank you. I live in Louisville, but I'm now a Superior resident because I'm a Marshall Fire victim myself. And I just want to say thank you for your service to all of you and everyone that's given to this community and the broader community during this time of need. I really want to thank Mayor Folsom. This is his final State of Superior, so I think we owe him a round of applause. And gratitude for his leadership the past 8 years. In my day job, I work on transportation, and he's just been a phenomenal leader, locally, regionally, state, federally. And so we all have a lot to be proud of and grateful for in his leadership. Mayor Pro-tem Lacis, your leadership regionally, in the state, federally. So let's be sure to thank people for their service, because these are phenomenal leaders, civic servants that give so much to make our daily lives as wonderful as they really are. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate those kind words.
Just wanted to add one thing to thank you, Audrey, for that. That was really nice of you to say. To your question about the response and the cause, and to the mayor's point about the first responders and notifications. So Sheriff Pele has been our sheriff for the past 2 decades, 20 years. He's term limited, so there's a primary right now. Election day is the 28th, so there's 2 candidates for sheriff. So if you haven't voted yet, I'd encourage you to do so and to familiarize yourself. One of the candidates is the police chief in Louisville. One of the candidates is a Boulder County Sheriff's Office officer. So they're both from law enforcement. Both of them lost their homes in the fire, and it's an important position. So definitely remember to vote.
Well, if we've exhausted all the questions, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Again, it's been an honor to serve you for the last 8 years. I'll still be around till November, so, and I'll still be around here if you want to, have individual conversations. But please do check out some of the nice snacks that are over here, and thank you all for coming today.